Good morning everyone. So for today, we are going to discuss about the motor behavior, the motor control, the motor development, and the motor performance. But before that, let's read all together the objectives.
At the end of the lesson, the student should be able to define motor learning and its relationship to other related disciplines, understand the definition of motor control, motor development, and motor performance. Letter C, demonstrate the following skills: the fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and the hand-eye skills.
Okay, thank you class. The objectives are, at the end of the lesson, the student should be able to, letter A, define motor learning and its relationship to other related disciplines. Then letter B, you are going to understand the definition of motor control, motor development, motor behaviors, and motor performance. And letter C, you are going to demonstrate the following skills: fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and the eye skills. Okay, today our topic is all about the
Motor behavior.
So what is motor behavior for you, class? You don't have any idea. Okay, please listen attentively because later on we will have an activity. Okay, what is motor behavior? So motor behaviors from the word motor, which means something that could move. So motor behavior is defined as any actions or behaviors that led to movement. It is about how motor skills are learned, controlled, and developed across the lifespan. So it is all about on how would we move or how would we emphasizes our movement. So motor behavior are divided into three disciplines. So what are these three disciplines? Can you read, Miss Valdez? Okay, so the first is the motor control. So the motor control is the regulation of movement in organisms that possesses a nervous system. So motor control includes reflexes as well as directed movement. Okay, you are gonna be what you are doing, like for example, you are going to run, you are going to jump, you emphasizes a motor control. You are controlling or you are balancing your body movement. So motor control is the physiological process whereby motor development occur. So motor control is divided into two subsets, which is the gross motor control. So what is the gross motor control? Okay, the gross motor control is the ability of a human to move a large muscle group or segment of the anatomy. So like for example, you are lifting something, so that is an example of the gross motor control. Or waving of an arm is an example of this type of movement. So another one is the fine motor control. So it is the ability to manipulate precise movements such as handwriting. So handwriting is another type of the example of this movement. Number two. Okay, motor development. Can you read?
Motor development is the development of a child's bone and ability to move around and manipulate his or her environment.
Okay, motor development refers to the development of our body. Then it divided into two sections, the gross motor development and the fine motor development. So the gross motor development is the skill involves the large muscle in the arms, legs, and torso. So like for example of this is dancing, volleyball, playing volleyball, then jogging. Then another one is the fine motor skills. It involves the small muscles of the body, especially in the hand. Like for example, you're dialing a phone and typing on the keyboard, and that is the example of the fine motor development. So motor development also involves the child's vestibular and proprioceptive systems. Both of these are part of the child's sensory system. Kindly read, Miss Hannah.
The vestibular system, it is located in the inner ear and allows the body to maintain balance.
Okay, thank you. So vestibular system is a sensory system that is responsible for providing our brain with information about motion, head position, and spatial orientation. Then another one is the proprioceptive system.
The proprioceptive system. It involves the inner ear, the muscles, joints, and tendons. It
So
allows the
the-
body to understand where it is located.
So the proprioceptive system is located in our muscles and joints. It provides us with a sense of body awareness and detects or controls force and what? Pressure. And it enables us to judge limb movements and positions, force, heaviness, stiffness, and viscosity. It combines with other senses to locate external objects relative to the body and contribute the body image. So the typical development of a child's motor skills usually follows as a predictable order or sequence. So first sequence is development occurs from the inner body to the outer body. This means that a child usually develop or gain control over their arms before they develop or gain control over their fingers. Then another one, the second sequence. The development also starts from the top to bottom. So children need to control their head first. Then they will gain control over their legs and feet. Example of it is a newborn baby. I think 8 months, the baby can control their head. Then after that, when they are 8 months or 9 months, they will control their legs and feet. Okay, another discipline of motor behavior is motor learning. Please read, Mr. Samson. Okay, thank you. So motor learning is a learning that occurs in the mind. Then being executed, the skills learned immediately. Like for example of this is learning to play a song on the piano. So initially, it takes a lot of thought and practice before the task is automatic and executed skillfully. So that is an example of motor learning. You have to learn something, you have to learn first, then after that, you can execute it with your own. Like for example, you don't know how to dance, then when your instructor in PE will teach you, then when you learn, you can execute it all by yourself. And that is an example of the motor learning. Okay, there are 3 stages in which motor learning occurs. So what are they? Kindly read.
Cognitive stage. During this initial stage of motor learning, the goal is to develop an overall understanding of the skill. The learner must determine what the objective of the skill is and begin to process environmental factors that will affect their ability to produce the skill.
Okay, thank you. Cognitive stage is where a child can learn any short or a little skills or words that can be taught by the mother or by any person. Okay, example of this is talking with your baby and naming commonly used objects. Letting your baby explore the toys and move about. Then singing and reading to your baby. Then it will make them learn. You teach a child, you are going to teach your baby on how to clap their hands, how they close and open. Then they will learn after a while or after 2 days or 1 week. It depends. Okay, next stage.
Associative stage. During this stage, the learner begins to demonstrate a more refined movement through practice. Now that the learner has had some practice and has identified various stimuli that may occur, they can focus on how to do, moving on from the what to do in the first stage.
Okay, thank you. So associative stage is just like it sounds. The beginner participants begins to associate a movement or skill with the verbal or visual cues being given by the instructor, and this may enable them to react more quickly and efficiently. They may still struggle occasionally to recall aspects of the combination, but their learning process is taking hold, and this generally means fewer errors and more success. And that is the associative stage. In that case, they can focus on how to do, moving on from the what to do in the first stage. Then lastly is letter C, the autonomous stage. During this final stage of learning, the motor skill becomes mostly automatic. So progression to this level of learning allows the learner to perform the skill in any environment with very little cognitive involvement compared to the first stage. So associative learning occurs when you learn something based on a new stimulus. The most famous example is Ivan Pavlov's use of dogs to demonstrate that a stimulus such as the ringing of a bell leads to a reward or food. So let's proceed to the 5 characteristics of motor skills. Letter A, motor learning is an internal process that cannot be observed from an external perspective. Letter B, motor learning is a set of processes for the purpose of reaching specific learning objectives. Then letter C, the goal of motor learning is to form the designated motor behavioral habits through proper training. Then letter D, once a motor skill is learned, it becomes relatively permanent and will not be able to forget. So, it will not be easily forgotten. The letter E, according to Wang and Yang, 2012, motor learning is not value-free and it can be negative from a bad habit that is extremely hard to be changed once it is formed. Now let's proceed to the motor performance. What is motor performance? Motor performance is an end result or outcome of the executing a motor skill that can be observed from an external perspective. So it is the result of the practice. So it is the outcome of the executing motor skill. It can be observed either after a practice session or any skills, like for example, the coach observed that he or his player practice volleyball well in serving and hitting the ball. Any questions? Clarifications? Okay, none. Okay, now we have an activity. So, I will group yourselves into 3. So, in your group, you are going to present a role play showing the execution of the motor skill. What are those motor skills? It can be fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and hand-eye coordination. I will giving you 5 minutes to prepare the task, and after that, you will present it to the class.